Okay, let's unpack this. You know how sometimes you see headlines about a really complex topic, maybe climate action or financial markets, and it just feels like you're only getting like part of the story, or the data seems totally confusing. Well, the voluntary carbon market, the VCM, it definitely feels like it's in that category right now. Just a lot of noise, conflicting reports. It's tough to figure out what's really going on. So for this deep dive, we're cutting straight to one of the most respected sources out there. We've got the brand new State of the Voluntary Carbon Market 2025 report, just published by Ecosystem Marketplace, right here. And our mission today, pretty simple, really. We want to guide you through the most important findings in this report. We're going to pull out the surprising facts, the key insights, and help you understand the reality of the VCM's current state. Straight from the data, straight from the experts quoted in this source. Think of it like bypassing the headlines, getting right to the core of what this research actually reveals. Okay, so the big overarching theme.
The thing that really jumps out from this SOVCM 2025 report is that the VCM is in a major transition. A difficult one, kind of messy, but you could argue it's necessary. And the report says it's being driven by this push for, well, higher quality and integrity. But as the data shows pretty clearly, this isn't exactly a smooth ride. The first thing that probably catches your eye in the report, it's this number. Transaction volumes, they actually fell, pretty dramatically too, by 25% in 2024. That takes us back to the lowest volume levels we've seen since, 2018? On the face of it, that sounds like pretty bad news. Maybe even like a market in trouble, right?
It absolutely looks concerning if you just stop there, yeah. But what's fascinating and what the report immediately gives us context for is what happened with prices. Because even with that volume down 25%, credit prices only declined by, well, a modest 5.5% on average in 2024.
Only 5.5%, okay.
Exactly. Now, that relatively small price dip, it's crucial. It means that while fewer credits actually traded hands, the overall market value in 2024 was still 1.9 times higher than it was back in 2018.
Wow. Nearly double the value from 2018, even with lower volume.
Right. So you've got significantly less volume than maybe the peak years, but a market value nearly double what it was just 6 years ago. That immediately tells you something else is going on besides, a simple collapse.
Okay, so the report's saying don't just look at the volume. The value tells a different, maybe more nuanced story. That makes sense. But is there anything else in the data, something that gives us a clearer picture of the market's sort of underlying health, beyond just trading volume and average price? The report points to retirements, doesn't it?
Exactly. And retirements are a really, really important indicator to watch. They represent the end user demand, the companies or individuals actually buying credits and then permanently taking them off the market to account for their emissions. And the report highlights that retirements held remarkably steady in 2024.
Steady, even with the volume drop.
Yeah, they've essentially plateaued at a really high level since about 2021. We're talking 182 million tons of credits retired just last year.
Right, 182 million tons. So you've got trading volume dropping significantly, but the actual use of credits, the retirements holding steady. How does the report connect those dots? That seems a bit counterintuitive at first glance.
It does, doesn't it? But the report argues that this combination, lower transaction volume, relatively stable prices, and these resilient retirements, indicates that the underlying demand hasn't just evaporated. Instead, it suggests a deeper transformation is underway. The report uses a great phrase for it, actually. It calls it a supply-side reboot.
A supply-side reboot. I like that.
Yeah, the market is essentially resetting itself. You've got suppliers and developers responding to what's clearly more sophisticated demand, and that really powerful push for quality we mentioned.
That phrase really captures it. And the report quotes Charlotte Barber from Ecosystem Marketplace. She sort of nails this description. She says it's a winding down of a legacy market from older methodologies and the scaling up of a new phase of the VCM. And crucially, she adds that through all this churn on the supply side, end user demand is staying steady. That feels like a really critical insight from the report, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
That demand signal is still there. Even the trading activity looks, well, different.
It really is. And the report digs into why quality and integrity are such powerful drivers of this whole transition. It points directly to the development of policy and, significantly, these integrity frameworks. The Integrity Council for the Voluntary Carbon Market's core carbon principles, the ICVCM's CCPs, they're specifically called out.
Right, the CCPs.
Yeah, as beginning to have a real tangible impact on buyer behavior.
Okay, so how does this focus on quality actually show up in the market data? In the numbers presented in the report, what specific trends highlight this preference?
This is where the numbers get really interesting. I mean, really interesting. The report shows a massive and growing premium for removals credits compared to reductions credits.
Okay, and just to quickly clarify for everyone listening, removals are credits from projects that physically pull carbon out of the atmosphere, right? Like planting trees or direct air capture.
Correct.
And reductions are from projects that prevent emissions from happening in the first place, like improving energy efficiency or protecting forests from deforestation.
Exactly. And the report highlights that in 2024, removals were a staggering 381% more expensive on average than reductions.
381%.
Yeah. Think about that. Buyers were willing to pay nearly 4 times as much. And this is a huge jump from what was already a significant premium in 2023, which was 245%. So that data point alone, it just speaks volumes about what buyers are prioritizing now. Demonstrable. Physical removal of carbon.
Okay, 381% is incredible. Is it just the type of project removal versus reduction, or is there anything else buyers are paying a premium for, according to the report?
Oh, absolutely. The report also points to a strong and actually increasing preference for credits from recent vintages.
Okay, so the year the reduction or removal actually happened.
Precisely. The idea here is that, well, more recent projects are often seen as having higher additionality, maybe reflecting current best practices more accurately, and the premium for these recent vintages saw an even bigger leap last year. The report shows an unprecedented 217% premium for credits, with vintages from the last 5 years, specifically in 2024.
217% premium for recent years.
Yeah, up dramatically from just a 53% premium for recent vintages the year before, in 2023.
That's a huge jump.
It's massive. This isn't just a slight preference anymore. It's a huge signal that buyers are intensely focused on the recency and, the perceived quality of the project's impact.
So buyers are paying through the nose for removals and for recent projects.
Got it.
Does the report also provide concrete evidence that those integrity frameworks, like the CCPs you mentioned, are having a direct impact where they've actually been applied?
Yes, that's another key takeaway here. The report explicitly states that where CCP-approved credits were available in 2024, the transaction volumes and the prices were, and I'm quoting here, markedly higher. It really shows the market is ready and willing to reward that perceived stamp of quality when it's there.
And the example they give from the source is really compelling, isn't it? The waste disposal sector. Volume grew over 3 times, and the report attributes this specifically to demand for CCP-approved landfill gas credits.
Exactly. The report gives the specific numbers, too, for landfill gas credits after they received that ICVCM approval, the average price. It increased by a significant 35% just in the second half of the year post-approval.
35% price jump.
And the volume traded for these specific credits in 2024, 3.1 million tons, which is a massive 149% increase in volume compared to 2023 for those same credits.
Wow.
That's pretty direct evidence, wouldn't you say? The market responding very positively to that integrity signal when it becomes available.
No question. Okay, so beyond the hard data, the report also includes perspectives from other experts in the field, which add some important layers to this whole story of transition. Ricardo Bellon is quoted, and he offers a view framed more by market cycles.
Yes, Ricardo Bellon, he's a partner at Encourage Capital. He's quoted saying quite bluntly that reports on the death of carbon markets have been exaggerated.
Huh, okay.
Yeah.
Straightforward.
Yeah, he clearly sees 2024 as a down year, maybe a necessary correction after what he calls loosely rational exuberance. But his key point, and this aligns perfectly with the report's data we've been discussing, is that the fundamental indicator of demand, those retirements, continues its constant trend since the market really began.
Right, that steady underlying demand.
Exactly. He sounds pretty optimistic that the market will, quote, boom when these trust and integrity issues are fully resolved, which, importantly, he states, are being dealt with. His memorable closing quote in the report is just, buckle up.
Buckle up. Yeah, sounds like good advice given everything we're seeing. Now, Aaron Bloomgarden, the CEO of Emergent, he adds another crucial piece to the puzzle, also highlighted in the report. He points to a shortage of the very credits companies increasingly want. That high-integrity supply just isn't there in sufficient quantity yet.
Yes, Bloomgarden argues that this shortage of supply is actually a key reason for the lower trading volumes we saw. It's not necessarily lack of interest. Companies want these high-integrity credits, but They simply aren't available in the volumes needed right now.
Right.
He gives the specific example of jurisdictional REDD plus credits, noting their strong buyer interest, including from big players like the Leaf Coalition and airlines needing credits for CORSIA compliance once those credits are actually issued. He clearly anticipates volumes increasing significantly as this higher integrity supply starts to come online more robustly.
But Bloomgarden also adds a really vital point, that it's not just about supply, is it? The report includes his perspective that more work is needed on the demand side, too.
Absolutely crucial point. He stresses that while, yes, high-integrity supply is necessary, the market also needs companies to build stronger internal business cases for using these credits effectively. And critically, he says there needs to be clearer signaling from the standard setters, confirming that compensation for emissions via removals and reductions is, quote, vital.
Vital.
Yeah, vital for the millions of tons of carbon emissions companies will inevitably still have as they work towards their net zero goals. It's a complex equation, right? It involves both supply and demand signals needing reinforcement.
It really does. So bringing it all together, Alexia Kelly from the High Tide Foundation provides a really helpful summary that's quoted in the report. She sees a market clearly transitioning to higher quality, higher prices, and still steady retirements. Pretty much sums up what we've discussed.
And she echoes points we've already touched on, noting that the committed participants, the serious players, they aren't abandoning the market. But she importantly reminds us that despite everything, the market is, in her words, still in its infancy.
Still in its infancy. That's a key perspective.
Definitely. And like Bloomgarden, she stresses that strong demand signals and continued focus on quality and market reform are fundamental if we want to build trust, achieve real growth, and maximize the climate impact.
The report also includes Maria Alejandra Cantuarias from Bosques Amazonicos, and she highlights the importance of the report itself, actually. She sees data like this from Ecosystem Marketplace as essential for creating a more transparent, robust, and credible carbon market, helping everyone identify bottlenecks and ultimately scale up effective climate action.
Yeah, that transparency is key.
So, okay, let's pull back from all the details, all the expert voices in this deep dive into the SOVCM 2025 report. What does it ultimately mean for you listening right now?
Well, it shows a market that is undeniably complex. It's facing significant challenges, no doubt, particularly in that trading volume figure. But the data also clearly demonstrates resilience, especially in that underlying demand represented by retirements. And a very clear, very powerful shift towards prioritizing quality and integrity. It's not a simple narrative of collapse, not at all, nor is it some story of unfettered, easy growth. It really feels like the story of a difficult, maybe messy, but necessary evolution towards a more mature market. So just to recap our deep dive into the Ecosystem Marketplace report. The voluntary carbon market is navigating a really significant, sometimes challenging transition. It's driven fundamentally by this demand for higher quality and integrity. And this shift is already influencing transaction types, it's influencing prices, even as that core end-user demand, the retirements, remains resilient.
Right. And maybe here's a final thought for you to mull over, drawn directly from the perspectives we found within the report itself. We just heard Alexia Kelly describe this market as still in its infancy. Now, try layering that perspective onto Ricardo Bean's view that these ongoing issues of trust and integrity are being dealt with, and his strong belief that the market will eventually boom.
Infancy plus problems being solved.
Exactly. What does that combination, an infant market actively working through its foundational challenges, suggest about its future potential? If it successfully navigates this difficult transition phase, what could this market look like when it, grows up?
Yeah.
How much more climate impact could it potentially have then? Something to think about.